Welcome back to the grind. In this video, we're going to talk about the spell details for the FrostWreath Mythic Dragons. I'm very excited for this season as a whole, and I think these Mythic Dragons are pretty cool. The first one we're going to talk about is Noctarn, and this is the Mythic Wind Hunter. Yes, it will be a Wind Hunter. They changed the element because of player feedback. Now, I know some people are upset about the change now because they had already invested in gear, and I understand that, and I hope they're able to compensate you fairly in some way. Now, before we talk about the spells for Nocturne, I'm going to say I'm not actually as excited about this dragon as I thought I would be, and we're going to go through why. Essentially, it comes down to the fact that his cloak has a 2-second cooldown, which means you can't use it multiple times to dodge multiple shots. This Silent Swoop is an active white 1 rage spell that will cloak the dragon for 0.5 seconds, and then after uncloaking will give an increased breath damage by 125% and then have a 2-second cooldown. This means that you can't dodge multiple shots from flax, which means if you're hitting bases higher level than you, you're going to have to tank damage from these towers, and the higher you hit, the quicker you'll die. And there's really no other way to avoid the damage. You'd have to tank every other shot, if not more. And he doesn't really have any way to destroy key towers quickly. But let's talk about all his spells, and then we'll talk about this a little bit more. He has Snowdrift, a 1 rage white spell that deals 10% of dragon's modified HP as damage to towers in a target area and disables them, like sand. And then he has Hunter's Mark, a red spell that costs 1 rage, which you can place on a target tower or monument, and then when destroyed will give you 31% health back, as well as 2 rage. And then it will have a 4-second cooldown. And this is a great spell to help feed you through your run or to leave one behind for whoever's following you. And then we talked about Silent Swoop already, and then he will have Battle Screech, which is basically like Battle Cry, which you can see on warriors, which will increase the attack by 7% each time you cast it, and it will have an 8-second cooldown, but there's no limit to how many times you can cast it. So for on long bases, you can really build up a decent amount of increased damage for you and every single other dragon that follows, not just the immediately following dragon. So all in all, this dragon sounds great. Very fun looking disable setup dragon, but the problem is this is meant to be played at endgame, a maxed out dragon. And if we had a dragon that was overpowered like Hasset, that was at max tier and had a lot of health and damage, then it would be impossible to shoot down this dragon. Just imagine a Hasset that did not require perfect timing to execute the base, where you could take a couple shots on every island you faced. That would be really unfair. So that's why this cloak, in my opinion, needed to be longer. The problem with that is that if you're not endgame, and say you're where I am, Emerald, and you want to attack a base that it has stronger towers than your tier, you would struggle significantly to stay alive, because you can use Snowdrift to hit, let's say, the front red mage and 1 flak, and then you would use Silent Swoop to dodge all the initial super shots. But then when you come out of Silent Swoop, you have a front tower and a back tower that will be dealing damage to you, and you'll be able to probably disable 1 after its first shot, but the other one will likely get 2, maybe 3 shots off before you can use Silent Swoop again. And that's assuming that you cancel the cloak early and don't take the 2-second breath damage bonus and go straight into the 2-second cooldown. But if you're hitting bases that you can tank a few shots, then Nocturne will still be a good and fun dragon. I would say you would want to use Snowdrift to disable the red mage initially, use Silent Swoop to dodge the initial shots, then place a Hunter's Mark on one of the towers that you're going to destroy, and hopefully you have enough firepower to destroy it, since this dragon doesn't have a spell to quickly destroy towers. After coming out of Silent Swoop the first time and placing Hunter's Mark, you could disable the other tower that's still alive and then go into Silent Swoop again after tanking a couple shots. At that point, I would probably let it expire so you can get the damage bonus. That might be enough to help you destroy the other remaining tower that has the Hunter's Mark on it. And if you're not hitting towers that are too high above your tier, that should be enough damage to destroy the tower, and the Hunter's Mark will hopefully be enough to heal back the damage that you took. The issue here, though, is even if this works out on a base 2 or 3 tiers above your level, you still have to follow behind with a dragon, and you may not be able to even get 30 to 70% on a base, which is important for war, and it will take a lot of time, which is not ideal for Atlas. And with the dragons that I have currently, I'm able to destroy bases 100% that are 2 to 3 tiers above my level. So it doesn't really seem beneficial to have this dragon in my roster at this time. Now, believe me, I'm very sad to say that because I love hunters, and I was very excited for Nocturne because the dragon looks very cool. I like the idea of the spell set, but I just don't see my particular use for him. But as always, I'm going to refrain from making my final judgment until after I've seen the dragon fly and seen it in action. And then the runes and glyphs will decrease Battle Screech cooldown and increase hunter attack. So this Battle Screech might be able to contribute a lot of health over a long base. So at max tier, this dragon will actually probably be quite beneficial. Now, I know it's weird, but I'm honestly a little bit more excited about Faf'Nyr. And this is the Mythic Fire Sorcerer. And again, this element was changed after the stream as well. So Faf'Nyr's spells will include a passive spell called Cursed Greed, and this means that the dragon does not regenerate rage at baseline. But destroying a tower will restore 0.5 rage and 10% of the dragon's modified HP. And the dragon always starts with full rage and has 100% increased breath damage. His next spell is Avarice, a white active 0 rage spell that spends 16% of your health to restore 2 rage and has a 3-second cooldown. So this will be a way to feed his damaged spells. And that spells it's called Golden Hex, but then the active use is Guild. This will be a 2-cast spell. The 2 casts initially have no cooldown between them, but then afterwards there's a 2-second cooldown, and this spell will function like Crumble to Dust on Hasset. So the first cast will cause the towers to take 25% increased damage and deal 50% decreased damage. And then casting it a second time will destroy the towers that were affected. And this sounds like it will be able to affect 2 to 3 towers. And then this dragon will have Shining Splendor, which is a 2 rage white spell that will, for 4 seconds, block incoming projectiles and super shots, as well as deal 4% HP per second as damage, and then have an 8-second cooldown. So basically this is an invincibility or invulnerability spell. So when you approach an island, you'll use the first guild and the second guild, and then use Shining Splendor to allow you 4-second invulnerability, and then that will allow guild to come off cooldown. So at minimum, you can cast guild another 3rd time, which will debuff the remaining 2 towers on the back of the island for a short island. But then you can also use Avarice to restore enough rage to use it a 2nd time and destroy those towers completely. And on a long island, you'd have to use the spells a little bit more wisely, but you could debuff 2 rows of towers and 3 seconds later use Avarice again to cast the damage spell and destroy them. And hopefully the breath damage would be enough to destroy the other towers, but they might be overhealed by defenders if they were present. Also, this dragon looks really cool, and it sounds like Shining Splendor is going to have a very interesting animation. So I feel like this dragon has more potential as a solo or lead dragon. And then the runes and glyphs will decrease Shining Splendor cooldown and increase Sorcerer HP. Now again, I really do need to see the dragons in action to give my full opinions, so I will try to get some footage of that early on in the season, but I'm actually a little bit more excited about Faf'Nyr, and that's surprising to me. Anyways, I hope this helped, and good luck in the upcoming season.